Why aren't you coming to your father-in-law's funeral? I'll make sure you get divorced from my son. The funeral is tomorrow, you know. What? My name is Catherine. I'm a housewife in my 30s. This year marks the 9th year since I severed ties with my in-laws. My father-in-law suffered a heart attack due to diabetes on New Year's Day and was rushed to the hospital. Ever since the new year began, my husband was coming home late. Turns out, he was visiting his dad in the hospital. Dad has lost a lot of weight due to his illness. He can't move around on his own anymore. Mom is also down. They say they want to apologize for everything they've done to you, Catherine. To be honest, I don't think your mom is the kind of person who would change just because your dad got sick. Enough excuses. I'd like you to visit them, too. You don't have to come with me. Just go. You're his daughter-in-law after all. Reluctantly, I agreed to go see my father-in-law for my husband's sake. In the hospital room, I found my sister-in-law Emily, my husband's sister, and my Mill, who was as robust as ever. As soon as my Mill saw my face, a barrage of sarcastic comments erupted. Well, Catherine, long time no see. What gall you have showing up here. You probably came because you got scolded by my son, and you even come empty-handed. You really don't think ahead, do you? Just as I expected. My Mill hadn't changed one bit. Her mouth was as sharp as ever. Scolded. What are you talking about? Besides, it's insensitive to bring food to a diabetic patient, don't you think? Upon my serious response to my Mill's sudden barbs, my sister-in-law Emily retorted, Mom, look, Catherine doesn't seem remorseful at all. She doesn't even seem willing to apologize. She spat out, remorseful? What on earth do I have to feel remorseful for? I bet you wish we'd just disappear. My Mill blurted out hysterically. Did she think I would hastily deny it? Actually, seems like you're the one feeling that way. Since I appear to be an intrusion, I'll take my leave. I'd had enough. So I quickly tried to leave. Then something hit my back. Turning around, I saw my Mill had thrown her purse at me. How disrespectful. We'd be better off without you, Catherine. And Emily's face turned beet red as she lunged at me. Hearing the commotion, a nurse rushed in. Later, Emily apparently called my husband, who came home right away. Later I heard from my husband that Emily had said, Listen, big brother, Catherine said terrible things to Mom. I've always kept my distance from my in-laws. Just the fact that I, who am not even family, visited the hospital should be enough for them to be thankful. It seems they wanted to mend ties to rope me into caring for my sick father-in-law. I don't know about that. If someone needs to take care of your dad, why shouldn't Emily do it? I told my husband. Apparently, he conveyed it to my Mill, who ranted, What are you talking about? A daughter-in-law doesn't have to care for her in-laws. My precious daughter shouldn't be stuck cleaning up after her father. My blood boiled upon hearing that. Eventually, Mill ended up being the one to care for him, and my father-in-law was discharged. He's fine now, really. He's doing great. But it turned out she hardly took proper care of him. He had another heart attack, and this time, he passed away for good. I do feel somewhat guilty for my father-in-law, but after that mess, I can't face Mill and the others. I decided not to attend the wake or the funeral, pretending to be oblivious. My husband left for the funeral home the day before. Why isn't Catherine here, being the wife and all? He was harshly criticized by the relatives. Can't even control your wife. What a pathetic husband. It seems they all ganged up to belittle him. And I received an angry text from my husband. I also got like 40 crazy calls from my Mill. I finally picked up, and she screeched, Why aren't you at your father-in-law's funeral? I'm going to have you divorce my son. The funeral is tomorrow, right? What? Wait, isn't the funeral tomorrow? I thought it was tomorrow. Catherine, what on earth are you saying? I apologize. I must have misunderstood. And with that, I feigned confusion on purpose. In the end, only my husband decided to attend. So, Catherine isn't coming after all, huh? He sighed in disbelief. But I firmly refused to go. not wanting to see my Mill and Sil. However, family members still insisted, and my husband called again. Your father-in-law passed away, and you, his daughter-in-law, won't come. Make it right with the family. Apologize to Mom for your selfishness. Exasperated, I asked our child, honey, I'm at my limit. Should we just get a divorce? Mom, you don't have to put up with it anymore. I've seen you being treated harshly by Grandma and Aunt. Encouraged by that, I picked up divorce papers from the city hall, filled them out, and stamped them. Now it's up to my husband to complete them. Arriving at the funeral home, my husband, Mill, and Sil were the first to approach. You don't even take care of a sick man and make Mom suffer. Don't think you're sitting with the family, you disrespectful woman. My Sil squawked. I looked at her coldly, but didn't respond. My husband said, we didn't prepare a family seat for you since you said you wouldn't come. Now you show up, and it's a hassle. I told him, we're not family anymore, so it's fine if I don't sit with the relatives. My husband looked at me silently, seemingly understanding what I meant. My Mill and Sil continued to squawk. The gaze from the relatives pierced through me, but the one who's been treated unfairly is me. I've done nothing wrong. Sensing the tension, the relatives started to murmur because I, supposedly the daughter-in-law, was sitting apart. The atmosphere grew increasingly awkward. I decided there was no need for me to stick around for the final farewell. After paying my respects, I gave a slight nod to the relatives and left the funeral home. My ex-husband, Tom, seemed to have returned to his parents' home after the funeral. He later called and transferred the full amount of the alimony and future child support from his dad's life insurance. The neighbors were apparently gossiping a bit about his dad's funeral. Tom had always been a pushover, easily swayed by his mom and sister, Emily. He seemed to want the easiest life possible for himself. His dad was pretty much the same way. Emily, for all her faults, apparently got married. She even had a house built close to her mom's, claiming she wanted to be a dutiful daughter. With all that's happened, my health hasn't been the best. Maybe it's stress or oversleeping, but I've got a headache. I've been doing some soul searching, too. I never really stood up to my Mill or Sil, always avoiding confrontations. I used to think that as long as I apologized for anything that upset them, I'd be okay. It seemed easier to just go with the flow and avoid causing trouble. So it's not just Tom who's responsible for the mess. I've played my part too. Life has been much easier after the divorce. Just my child and me, without having to worry about Mill and Sil. The relief I felt made me realize just how much I'd been enduring, which is kind of sad. Tom had always been the type to avoid arguments, so we barely ever had any fights. In hindsight, it was probably his mom pulling the strings when he insisted I should help with his dad's care or come to the funeral. Truth be told, Tom was always someone who just did as his mom said. He hated being dragged into troubles, and that's all he cared about. Never took a stand for me or the kids. Just sat there in disbelief. I guess now he's living with my former Mill since my Phil is gone. When I told my mom about the divorce, I also talked about the funeral. My mom said it must have been tough, and she was right. After the funeral, I completely cut ties with my ex's family and lived peacefully with my kid. But then, yesterday, my ex Sil, whose behavior seemed off, showed up at my workplace. You're hiding Mom and my brother, aren't you, Catherine? She rambled on incomprehensibly. Look, Emily, I have no idea what you're talking about. Please don't come here again. You're causing a scene. I'll call the police. I forcefully drove the hysterical Emily away. Needless to say, I was stared at by my colleagues and felt embarrassed. Judging from her rant, it seems my ex and Mill sold their house and moved without telling Emily. Emily's hysterics were just like her mother's. That night, My kid and I went out for dinner. On the way home, we discreetly checked out their old house. I wonder what happened. I thought. I haven't heard from my ex. I tried to contact him about Emily causing a scene at work, but couldn't get through. He used to message our kid even after the divorce. Oh well, he'll probably reach out sooner or later. Just when I thought I'd put the whole thing behind me, Emily, my former sister-in-law, showed up at my workplace again. You thief. Lisa, give back my dad's inheritance, she ranted. From the moment she arrived, she had her hand in her pocket, which gave me a bad feeling. Turns out she was clutching a switchblade in there, and when she took it out, I immediately called the cops. Even after the police arrived, she didn't stop brandishing the knife and was arrested on the spot. Later, Emily's husband came to our house and said Emily was deeply stressed over family issues. You, Catherine, stole what was supposed to be her inheritance. We should settle this out of court. If you're determined to press charges, we'll hire a lawyer and fight back. Confused by his claims, I decided to consult the lawyer who had helped me during my divorce. The money you received was alimony and child support from your ex-husband. It was simply paid from his share of the inheritance. You didn't steal anything, the lawyer clarified. I also discussed why I divorced my ex-husband. Hearing this, Emily's husband said, "What I heard from Emily was completely different, and he deeply apologized. We have kids here, too. I'm truly sorry for the inconvenience. Can you please forgive us?" he asked. I agreed to settle out of court, requesting only the attorney's fees, and promised not to have any more to do with them. To my surprise, Emily showed up a third time. When did she get released? I immediately called the police upon seeing her. Given her criminal record, she was taken away swiftly. It turned out Emily had some serious issues and was admitted to a mental health facility, making legal proceedings difficult. I apologize once again for the trouble we've caused, her husband said, apologizing yet again. To focus on her treatment, she moved to her husband's parents' home after being discharged from the hospital and lived with them under supervision. This was put in writing and considered settled for the time being. Apparently, my former in-laws are saying they should just get divorced. Then, my child received a line message from my ex-husband saying, "It's Dad. Long time no see. I've changed my phone number." I had my child reply, "Something serious happened because of your sister. Contact me as soon as you find out." After relaying this information, my ex-husband called and said, "I'm sorry Emily has caused so much trouble. She's complaining that she's not getting enough of Dad's insurance money." "What do you mean by complaining?" "She says things like, 'Dad loved me the most, so I should get the most money. Mom will get her pension. And Tom is already divorced, so he doesn't need much. Give that money to me.' Emily never helps around her in-laws' house and only talks about her own gains and money matters. I've grown tired of Emily's behavior. Even after providing for her wedding and house, she continues to exploit us. I can't even stand to see her face or hear her voice anymore. Mom and I have decided to cut her off. We gave Emily and her husband money for a vacation and moved away while they were gone. We're living together now. If Emily or any relatives ask, please act like you don't know. We've moved to a remote mountain area and are pretty much self-sufficient." That seemed to be the case. I was infuriated by his irresponsible and self-serving attitude. As for playing dumb, that's asking too much given everything that has happened. Even if she's an annoying sister, she's still family. You're acting way too indifferent. I'm already divorced from you. We're strangers now. Don't contact me about such things anymore. I was on the phone, rattling off, "No, Catherine, that's a problem. My ex-husband may say otherwise, but I couldn't care less. Just so you know, the inheritance from my ex-Phil that they claim I took is actually in my ex-SIL's name." According to her husband, It's all untouched in the bank. She's discussing with my ex-mill and maybe returning. But I've no desire to see her. I decided to play dumb. I almost forgot. It's the first memorial for my ex-Phil. No way can I arrange anything during this chaos. And frankly, I don't want any future dealings with that family. It's been a hassle at work, too. If this happens again, I'll be in deep trouble. I've even had to request an apartment transfer. Luckily, my ex still doesn't know where I'm living now, but it's still on my mind. I can't move too far away because of my kid's school, but I'm considering relocating. I've been living with my child ever since, without thinking of remarriage. Got another message from my ex. For my child. Apparently, my ex-mill is hospitalized. My ex doesn't want to take care of her, so he's leaning on my ex-Sil, who is already saddled with taking care of my ex-Phil post-discharge. She's already stressed and doesn't want to deal with caring for my ex-mill. What the heck does he plan on doing? He might be hinting that I should take up the caregiving. But that's a hard no. My own parents are getting old and need care, too. If I'm gonna be a caregiver for anyone, it would be for my own parents, not some strangers who treated me badly. Before the divorce, my ex-mill made it hard to visit my own family. Now I can see them as often as I want. The day before a day off, my child often says, "I want to go see Grandma and Grandpa." And it makes me so happy. I've been making an effort to take my child to places they'd enjoy, like zoos, shopping malls, and beaches, with my own parents. Before the divorce, my ex-mill would admiringly say to my child, "On your days off, let's go out a lot. But not with Kay, with me." But my child seemed to really dislike it. I was worried they might end up hating the concept of grandparents. But since the divorce, we've been seeing my parents often. Now my child actually asks to go out with them. It's a happy kind of problem that I now need to think more about varying the places where we go for fun with my kid.